My name is David Volter. I'm here with Candy Dupree. Today's date is March the 14th, 2014. We are interviewing Mr. Carl Doering at his home, 705 Country Club Road, Georgetown, Texas, where he lives with his wife, Dolores. This interview is sponsored by the Williamson County Historical Commission, part of its World War II Oral History Project. Now, Carl, we're going to just ask you questions, and if any question doesn't hit you right, we'll just strike it out. But we'd like to start with if you just begin where you were born and grew up, and kind of bring us up to, in a very summary way, to World War II.
I was born in Georgetown in 1924, and it was Austin Avenue at that time. And
at some point, did you move to Wahlberg, or did you?
No, I've lived in Georgetown.
Okay.
All 89 years.
Okay.
Yeah, born inside the city limits, and never left.
Okay, but you were in business. Weren't you in the ginning business? And
I was in the cotton ginning business, the grain storage business, the tractor business, and banking business.
Most of that was in Georgetown, but you had property outside of Georgetown where you
Yes.
did some of that. Okay. Well, did you went to Georgetown schools?
No, I didn't.
No, you didn't.
I went to Concordia and finished high school in 41. And then I went to Arlington State in Arlington, which was belonged to Texas A&M.
So does Concordia have elementary school too? Or
No. I went to Zion
Lutheran.
in the lower grades.
Okay.
And then in 1941, when the Pearl Harbor was bombed, I was in the ROTC at Arlington, North Texas Junior College, or whatever it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a Sunday afternoon, and we had our uniforms on. We were marching on the football field in front of our parents, and they stopped us and came over the loudspeaker that Pearl Harbor was bombed.
So how did that affect you immediately? I mean, did you finish school, or?
No, I finished. I guess I was just 17 years old, and then in 1944, I went to Little Rock, Arkansas, in the Army.
Was that after graduating from Arlington?
No.
No.
What was the reaction of everyone at the stadium when you were marching and they announced the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
All of us didn't even know what Pearl Harbor was.
So there was really no reaction
No.
to that.
Wasn't any reaction for the students.
Yeah. I remember that it's not me, but that the people around me at that time seemed alarmed, but I also didn't know what was going on, what it was about.
But I got my further training. I had ROTC there, but I got further training in Arkansas.
And then did you go overseas to fight?
Then later on in 1944, I was shipped out to Fort Ord, California to get on a ship. And of course we didn't know where we were going.
Were you Army or Navy?
Army. And it was kind of odd. I was standing in line with about 150 or 200 other soldiers to get on this ship. And it was real odd that I was called out to go to headquarters. And there at headquarters, they told me I wasn't getting on that ship because I didn't have my glasses, which was real odd. But then a week later, I got on another ship, and we learned that the ship I was supposed to get on was sunk. The Japanese had sunk that ship.
Wow.
And I don't know why I got off of that ship.
Did you end up with your glasses on the second ship?
Yes. And we ended up in the South Pacific on the island, the Luzon Island, which is where Manila is.
Right, Philippines.
And we got into the I got into the 38th Division, and we were fighting north of Manila in the jungles about 20 miles.
Fighting the Japanese?
Yes.
And how long were you there? Approximately.
I don't know, let's see. From January to August something.
Do a lot of fighting in that many months.
Yeah.
What do you remember most about those months there? Have any particular experience that stands out?
There were two or three different things that I remember. One was the first night that I was in a foxhole with two other guys, and about 1 o'clock in the morning I heard something coming down the road, and I woke up the other two guys, and we decided that there wasn't supposed to be our army out at that time of the night, and they lined up their rifles at that time, and all at once we heard another foxhole that shot the two Japanese.
In that vehicle?
No, they were walking.
Oh, they were walking?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so when you heard something coming down the road, it was soldiers walking?
2 Japanese.
Yeah, not in a vehicle?
No.
Okay. And what else?
And then we pushed on and got orders to take this cave. And we started up the gully. I call it the gully. But we worked our way up. And some Japanese were not only on the ground, but they were up in some trees. And we eventually took the cave. We had some Kentucky boys in our platoon, and we never did have to say for volunteers because they were wanting. I mean, they were
Go-getters.
They were good. Anyway, there was one of those scouts was in front of me when we went into the cave, and there were several rooms, and I followed him and came to an opening and saw a lady laying on a cot with a baby in her arms. And the scout went a little closer, took his machine gun and shot both of them. I was about to get after him when he pulled a blanket off of her and she had her finger on the hand grenade.
So then you went back again. You can pick up where you were.
She had her finger on the...
Yeah, on the hand grenade.
So that we had the advantage then of having that cave to stay a little while, but that was only for 2 or 3 days. And then our company advanced away from Manila north, and we advanced too fast, our company did, and we were on top of this mountain, and we got surrounded by the Japanese. We all were in foxholes. However, the Japanese had us surrounded, and we ran out of food, but they dropped cans of K-rations from an airplane on parachutes. And half of them went to the wrong place. It was feeding the Japanese. But that was then in August of 45. And we heard that the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And then the Japs that were down there evidently made arrangements to surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And these 5 officers went down this mountain, and I went with them. I was an enlisted man, and a first sergeant. And we went down there, and there were about, well, I guess all the time there were 5,000 lined up. And I had orders to keep talking, that if I quit talking, there were planes up in the sky, and they would try to take care of the Japanese. But everything went good, and they came up, and they were officers, and they surrendered to us up on the mountain. And
that's the story.
That's on top.
That's a copy. Can we take that?
Yes.
Good.
No, that's the only one I got.
Oh, this is? Okay.
But we can make a copy.
Okay. So were you there in 44 or 45? Or did you go in 44 and kill 45? You said August. August?
No, I went in either December or January. December of 44 or January of 45.
Till August of 45. Okay.
And so when you came home, did you stay in the service, or what did you do when you came back from over there?
Well, a little bit more. We were then back closer to Manila, and our company was in charge of several thousand POWs. And I have a picture. I had a picture of my girlfriend, and the Japanese wanted something to do. And I said, well, make a drawing of this. And it took him about 3 weeks. And I have the drawing in my office.
A plan drawing of the layout, or?
No, of Dolores.
Oh.
Something I forgot before that, before the surrender, I was called back to headquarters and told I had a battlefield appointment to West Point. And I thought about it overnight, because I would have had to sign a deal that I would stay in the Army 4 years after I finished West Point. And I turned it down then.
You were still, what, about 18 or? Oh no, you were 17 when at Pearl Harbor, so
yeah.
You were in your 20s.
Yeah. And
do you ever regret that you turned that down?
I turned it down. And then we got orders that we're going to go home. And then on the ship, I broke out with malaria. Got home, and I was sick every 30 days. And couldn't do it.
Every 3 or 30?
Every 30 days.
30 days, okay.
I was sick. And took 2 or 3 days, and I was all right. Then 30 days later, I was sick again, and I didn't know what was going to happen. But about 4 months later, all at once the malaria went away. I was taking these Atiprine pills, and my fingers were all yellow, and my lips got turned yellow because of that. So I guess they cured the malaria.
Mm-hmm. Must have.
And Dolores then dated me, and
So
we got married the next year.
Next year, but you were back home and out of the Army?
Yes.
You had turned down the West Point appointment, and okay.
And so how did things change? Were y'all back in Georgetown? When you got married, you came to Georgetown?
She lived in Austin. We got married in Austin.
In Austin. So how did the war affect things in Williamson County?
It changed a whole lot. When I remember growing up, Georgetown had 3,500 people when I was living on Austin Avenue. It was then Dolores and I married in 47, September of 47. And we've been married 66 years. 4 children.
Backtracking a little bit, you lived during the Depression years. What was that like in Williamson County in Georgetown? I guess you were fairly young then, but probably remember something about it.
I really don't remember much about it.
Okay.
I know my dad had a cotton gin.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all I remember.
Okay. And then you came back to Georgetown, got married, and did you start several of these businesses at once, or what did you do to begin with?
I started in the cotton ginning business with my dad, and then in the Massey Ferguson dealership at the same time. And then my dad sold a cotton gin. It was either we buying out our competition or the competition buying us out.
Where was the cotton gin?
Right next to the railroad, right off of 12th Street, University Avenue, Highway 29.
Right. Don't want to make a too personal thing, but I know you knew Clarence Wolf up in Rosebud, and he was in the cotton business. Does it go back? Did your association with him go back that far, or when did you?
Yeah, I remember him.
Really?
He got into the cotton business in South Texas also. And I don't remember how long it was, but he picked me up one day and took me down somewhere in South Texas. I guess it was somewhere west of Corpus Christi or southwest. And they were ginning about 20 somewhat bales per hour, where all I was used to was 5 bales per hour. And when I sold out of the tractor business, I sold out to competitor and Taylor. Then I got into the grain business and turned our building to handle grain. And then I bought out Dad's partner in Andice and Wahlberg. He was in a partnership with McCann, Bill McCann, and Martin Tynert in Wahlberg.
Now, was that a grain business?
No, this was cotton ginning.
Cotton ginning, okay.
And after he bought them out, well, then I was partner with my dad. And I ran the Wahlberg gin, and Dad was still running the Georgetown gin.
What was the name of the gin?
Doering gin.
That was close to the railroad tracks. Did y'all use trains for hauling cotton?
This was before I was a partner. It was still a steam engine deal, and the coal came in on by the railroad. And Dad fell in the cotton gin here in Georgetown, and I had gone to a little schooling at A&M for grading cotton, so it was my job to grade the cotton at Georgetown, Wahlberg, and Andice. And we'd ship the cotton to Houston, to Anderson, Clayton and Company. And by the time it got down to Houston, it was usually 2 weeks before they graded it down there and send us a check. Well, the first one that we got back, I had lost, on the 3 gins, I had lost $10,000. And I called Mr. Clayton, and I was young then. I really let him have it. He says, well, come on down tomorrow, and we'll look it over. And I went down to Houston, and he had, it looked like 100 samples laying out on a table, and had a couple of black guys hand him the sample, and then I had to grade it, and he wouldn't say what it is, he just wrote it down. And when I got through, he said, goodbye, good to see you. And then 3 days later, he called and said he changed it, and we ended up just losing $3,000. Now, I don't know whether I graded it correct or not, or whether my dad had done business with them for so long, or whether they just gave it to us.
Mm-hmm.
Was there more than one gin in Georgetown when y'all had your cotton gin here?
There were 2 gin.
There were 2 gins here.
Walter Brady had the other gin.
And when you shipped that cotton to Houston, was that by train or?
By train.
Train. Okay.
And so then you opened up, after the cotton gin, you had a grain gin. Was it called Doering Grain?
Doering Grain.
Was 3-way grain open at that time?
Were what?
3-way.
was three-way grain.
Oh, yes.
So
yeah.
y'all were competitors.
Yeah. I don't know whether you want to hear this or not, but I got to sending a lot of grain to my competitor after the season, three-way grain. And I got pretty friendly with the owner. His name was Hicks, I believe. And one day he called me in his office when I had a load of grain out there, and he said, who do you do your banking business with? And I said, well, they wouldn't give me enough credit here in Georgetown, so I went to Austin National Bank. And he said, would you take me down there? I said, yeah. So I took him down there, and he met with the guy that I was doing business with, and they financed him then to a bigger extent.
During the war, you mentioned being on a ship. I thought you might have been in the Navy. Southwestern had that, what was it called?
V-12?
V-12 program. Were you familiar with that at all? And
a little bit. I wasn't at the football game, but whether I read it in the paper or what, but that was when V-12 in Texas University, either they quit it or all those football players were transferred to Southwestern. When Southwestern became number one in the nation, and they won all the ball games.
that apparently was in one of the military newspapers. What was it called? Someone said they had read it in the newspaper, maybe in Europe or somewhere, I don't know where, and saw that Southwestern had beaten or become number one in the country.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
This tells a whole lot.
Yeah. We have some little brochures in there about conditions in Texas during the war, and it mentions internment camps that a lot of Japanese and people of German descent were in these camps. Were you affected by that or aware of that at all?
I wasn't affected by it.
Okay.
That must have been right after the war, you said?
I guess. Have to read to see when it was, but very well could be.
I had enough of it.
Yeah.
But I got that appointment to West Point, and I had it easy from then on.
I guess so. So you had considerable, several different businesses, and when did you first, I know you were president of the school board and then you became mayor, and when did you first get involved in
banking business?
Yeah.
Probably in '91.
What was first? Were you president of the school board first?
Yes.
In '91?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was back. I was mayor in 44, 45, 46.
Oh.
And that was before that time.
Before you went in the service?
No. I said 40. 84.
84, okay.
85.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, those were my early years here, so I remember that.
Okay.
What bank were you with?
Here in town,
Mm-hmm.
I was with the former State Bank. Mr. Allen,
When it was where the museum is?
yes,
Yeah.
and I needed some money, more money to operate on, and I went in there and he gave me what I wanted. Was the next thing I knew, my dad had to co-sign it.
Well, you got into the banking business in Wahlberg too, did you not?
Well, in the Wahlberg State Bank,
Right.
but I still lived in Georgetown.
And I suppose you had an involvement there when Mimi Kalmbach was shot in that robbery.
Yeah.
So what things have you seen that have changed in Georgetown or Williamson County? What are
A
some?
lot of building and a lot of people. I never did think it would get like it is now. 47,000. I wish it was still maybe 10,000.
Well, you were mayor some years before the thought of getting a Sun City in Texas came about.
Right afterwards.
It was right afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that certainly has made a difference in population, I think.
Yeah. But the biggest industry here then was the Georgetown Railroad, and they were shipping all that, not concrete, but
Crushed stone.
crushed stone to Houston. And Mr. Snade was really fortunate. And when I was on the school board, he put me as a director of the Georgetown Railroad.
When did he actually start the crushed stone business? And do you remember? It must have been before the 80s, because I came in 79, 80.
And it was going.
It was going strong then.
Yeah, that's right. I was on the school board at the time when he came in.
Well, can you think of anything we haven't asked about that you'd like to mention?
Or any of your favorite memories of Williamson County?
Not any special one.
Did you have friends that you knew, like from around here, who were in the service same time you were, or were all the people you knew strictly
We all got sent different places.
different places?
Okay.
I think I'm the oldest person living in Georgetown right now that never left Georgetown. Born in Georgetown, never left.
Except for your time in the service.
Except for the service, yeah.
Except in the service.
Well, we